And we distinguish two parts. A Chinese buyer, which is also can be your shareholder, or a Chinese financial shareholder. Well, the story of Chinese buyers buying company is impeccable. Impeccable. They have been very constructive, very positive in the company they bought. I'm mainly talking about Europe. They have invested in what they bought. They never bought a European company, contrary to conventional wisdom, to take it down and bring the production to China. Actually, they value what they buy because they value as a door, as a way to learn. They value a lot what they buy, and they like what they buy. They invest in what they buy. If needed, they pass order to what they buy to give you strength. They're very culturally very careful. They're not arrogant. They listen. They do respect local management. And the history of real success. And they generally use the company they buy to become a platform for supply high quality components. I had a case which is amazing. A big company we invested in, a big Chinese company, at some point discovered a special material that make its machine 30% lighter. Discovered a special material in Europe. Now the special material would give this Chinese company a tremendous competitive advantage. They're already making machine with this material and so on, and advanced machine. Now they've decided to gain a fundamental edge in the Chinese market. They have decided to build the Chinese product with a special material. And then they talked to some producers, of course the European producers. They lined up, and there are very few, and they were very willing to do transfer of technology, to China. Oh, the boss said, no, nobody comes to China. I'm going to build a factory in Europe. Because if I build it in China, in 3 months, everybody will know. And in 6 months, I'll be copied in a minute. As long as I keep the company in Europe, I can keep my competitive advantage for a few years. And that was the Chinese talking. Okay, that was really amazing. And this is why I like this game of investing. Because it really changes people's mindset. It does help communicate in an incredible way. It does get the countries and culture very close. Much more than trading. Although, so just to finish, so Chinese companies generally respect the management. They want to check the accounts. They send their guy to check the numbers. Businesses check the numbers. One thing which is a common feature is they always become a little slow and centralized. The decision-making process in China is always, the society is a little vertical, as you probably know. So even the company tend to be a little vertical. So as long as they are within China, it's okay. When you start having subsidiaries and stuff, you need to delegate more. And this process of delegation ain't quite happening. Okay? Okay, they haven't adopted a structure that they're still, they're not adopted a structure that, the sort of structure that Pedro Nueno will tell you that should be used. There's a big room for consulting here. Now we go into the second type of shareholder, of investor, that are the financial investors. They basically invest China cash. There's a lot of China cash around. Okay? And China only has like the famous 3.2 trillion in reserves, so the cash has to be put somewhere. And that includes the 3.2 trillion only includes the official reserves. but doesn't include the cash, the foreign currency owned by the Chinese companies. And there are some Chinese financial companies that have huge amount of money in Hong Kong. So forget the 3.2 trillion. We're talking about much more. Okay? Now, I think most of the foreigners, we already know how many Chinese financial shareholders do you know? Wow. The most famous one is CEIBS, China Investment Corporation. Is the famous sovereign fund. Okay, it's the sovereign fund has been allocated probably 400 to 500 billion, not really because some of it is still in renminbi, but a few hundred billion dollars to invest overseas. That's the most famous. But there are others. There is CDB and Exim that are my shareholders. They mainly do Africa, Latin America, and Central Asia. But they also very large investors. Plus another gigantic investor nobody talks much about, which is much larger than everybody, is SAFE. I don't know whether any of you has ever talked about SAFE. But the dream of every equity salesman in the world, the dream of any Goldman Sachs executive or Morgan Stanley or whatever, is to have a relation with SAFE. SAFE is called State Administration of Foreign Exchange, which is the one who managed most of those 3.2 trillion. Because if you probably don't know, the Chinese have up to 3 or 5% of any major Fortune 500. They really make it they're very, very careful never to go over the threshold that needs to be declared. But every day they pass orders, and they are public silent shareholders in most of the major world corporations. But they always manage to stay below the threshold. If you talk to any JP Morgan, whatever, they can show you the order they pass every day. It's amazing. Amazing. And sometimes this comes up, but generally, Chinese low-key, right?
Why is this different than the Japanese lines in the 1980s? What are the Chinese doing differently? Or they learned from that? We had a lot of sentiment, especially in America, right, against the Japanese.
No, well, in some way they are repeating the same mistakes. In some way. The Japanese came and overpaid and went bust. The famous when they got to both Empire State Building, that was the last straw. So to some extent, the phenomenon is repeating itself. With a few differences. First, the Chinese are much more adaptive. I mean, they can make the first mistake, but then they learn quickly. They're much more flexible. When I meet people in airports, and they ask me, how is China doing? And I say, look, you know what? China is like a big Naples, I say. Or a big Sicily. I mean, Chinese are smart. They go in and in. So compared to Japanese, are much more structured and rigid. And also in the management of the company, Chinese are more flexible. And another big difference that doesn't really relate to Europe is the fact that Chinese, when they go to Zambia to build the dam, you probably don't know, but 30,000 people go along. When the Libya war broke up, the Chinese government did not know they had 30,000 people in Libya. It was a like nightmare to get them out. You know why they are so careful in Syria? Because they don't want to go through again that experience. Okay? Because getting the 30,000 people off Libya in a week, they had to go back every single ship owner on the face of earth to get the hell out of there. They didn't even know they were there. He's not conscious It's not like people think, as economists think, no, the company goes, they get a bid, and then people emigrate with it, the whole family. And one of the problems is in some African countries, they do the infrastructure, but then these 30, 40, 50,000 people that come along take control of all the trading and the manufacturing side. Whatever is left of it. And then the local start resenting them. Of course, they work much harder than the locals. So because, by definition, every Chinese community in Asia, I know, wherever it is a dominant community. Whether it is Indonesia, Philippines, or Thailand, it's always the same problem. So, what is going to be the result in Africa? In Algeria, they're probably like 200,000. I mean, to what extent? Because these guys, at the beginning, start working. And then, after a while, they really count. They are really the people with cash and the people with power. What's going to happen? There are already in a few countries where presidents are going up on an anti-Chinese platform. And this is a big wake-up bell for the Chinese government, because now this whole policy of non-interference, let the thing go, it doesn't hold anymore. Because they have huge population offshore. They need to diversify their Arab policy. The Arab world is now one together. They have to take care of those flares of anti-Chinese sentiment. One thing is to taking care of the anti-Chinese sentiment when you have a few $1 billion investment, who cares? But when you have 60,000 people, it's hell of a problem. This is so big thing which is going on at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But this is, then we go to my, did I reply? Yeah. Okay, so I said there are these three levels. Then there are, the fact is, I mentioned four. You know how many institutional shareholders there are investing in the Chinese private equity world? Give me a number. You give me a number. You always know lucky numbers.
I don't know. No, maybe 1,000?
You're so smart. 3,000. But you went close. Because I was expecting 200. There are only in private equity, there are 3,000 investors. And now, long story, talk about Chinese investors. First you have to draw a line. I'm talking sort of business people. You have to figure out immediately what they can do, what they cannot do. Okay? So you have to draw a line. Who can do foreign currency, who only does local currency? And whether that fits your strategy. Are you looking for renminbis, or are you looking for dollars? That already is a big discriminator. Okay? And, but in a very, very dynamic situation. Because China is pushing very hard to make the renminbi reserve currency. No effort is being spared. So in this process, they have to dismantle capital controls. They have to make sure that as many renminbi as possible go offshore. Otherwise, no market develops. They have to create offshore yuan centers. So the barriers that prohibit people from deploying renminbi overseas are coming down every day. Well, I follow this phenomenon because it does relate to my business very much. Because I'm raising $1 billion, we basically raised it. But we had to check every day what was coming out of CSRC and so on to see who was allowed. And every day there is someone who's allowed to do it or to do it more. This is changing very quickly. Because the need to make the renminbi reserve currency strong, and the hurdle for that to happen are extremely high. There's a lot to be done. And I don't want to dwell on this subject because then I open a Pandora box that is never going to be finished. But this is not static. Of course, the different sophistication between, if you go to CIC, they're all like Chinese, they're returnees. You know what returnees are? Eh? They're just like people who work at JP Morgan, master in the States, live in the States stay for 10 years. Even the CAC office structure is made look like an investment bank. There are all cubicle in the middle and conference room around. They talk English much better than we do. They know all the deal, all the jargon words, are very, very sophisticated. You took a simple deal, they throw you out the window. Very spoiled, everybody's looking for them, a little arrogant maybe, very well prepared. Then you go to the more traditional one, not very sophisticated at all. Now, there are two things. I can go on and on to talk about differences. But there are two things that I want you to take home. We in Europe say, I'm a company in the automotive. And I can say, oh, I have always had a very good relationship with Bosch. Or my family, this company had a 100-year relation with Ford Motors. Okay? Well, in China, relationships are not institutional. That is, I cannot say I have a very good relation with CAC. That is not true. For two reasons. You have a very good relationship with some people in CAC. And when they leave, you have no relation with CAC. First, because the Chinese large company are very much more broken in faction than you think they are. On the outside, you see this unified wall, and everybody saying the same and never disagreeing, all voting the same. Behind the screen, they fight like hell. And there are a lot of different power groups. What you do have is a good relationship with a particular group within an institution. The minute the group leaves, you're done. Finished. And now, let me tell you what happens. Unfortunately, no relationship, nobody in China stays in a position very long. Why? Because with an economy growing at 10% or even 7%, and the need for middle management, especially in financial matters, how long do you think a good guy stay in that position? If you see the same person for 2 years, you're lucky. You do something really good, you say, this is fantastic, I really like Fan Shui, and then 2 years later, Fan Shui is promoted. Fantastic is promoted. The new guy comes in, finished. He has different set of relationships, he doesn't think Fan Shui is being promoted, but the institution is very compartmentalized. Then there is nothing that Fan Shui can do for you anymore. Now I have to read it here because I'm becoming. The relationships are very, very people-based. And this is the opposite of a more Western world. Unfortunately, the bad people don't make career that fast. So, you encounter the good people, you make beautiful, and they leave quickly. Then you get stuck with bad people, and they never leave. No, I'm telling you, I mean, you have to make judgment on these things. You have to treasure these things, because never told anybody. And another things I'm telling you, that in a large Western corporation, the boss will say, oh, what the fuck, there is this guy Carlito, what the heck. tell him not to bug me. You talk to the chairman, tell me not to bug me. Okay? You know, if I have a relationship with Banco Bilbao Vizcaya and I know the chairman and stuff, this new, oh, okay, I don't know. In China, it doesn't work that way. If you find these people mid-level, they are called small ghosts. You laugh. If you find a small ghost, and by chance the small ghost has a grudge against you, you're gonna have to chew on the small ghost for years and chew shit for years. And you may talk confidential with the governor of the bank, someone sit in the central committee and he agrees with you, and then you have to play tricks to go around the small ghost. Like not showing up at boards, and changing you have to play tricks. But getting rid of people, very complicated. Moving people, very complicated. Not like West, this guy just can't believe this. He doesn't understand, you know, doesn't even understand a shareholders agreement. He doesn't need the difference between a put and a call. Nothing. You have to live with him or her for 2 years. And this makes a big difference in terms of what they're looking for. Now, never had, I mean, we basically had sovereign stuff in our fund. We never had any sort of political interference. Nothing. No. At the top, people are excellent here in China. I wish we had that structure in Italy. They make our ministers, our government, they ridicule them. They are trained, they go to school, they go up to the top, they're fantastic. The problem is the middle level, the small ghost, that create a lot of problems. But the problem are petty problems, are not strategic problems. It's not whether to get €1 billion to make an investment. The problem is one clause in one investment, or well, why don't you help my friend in the other investment? Why don't you give my friend to my money that went broke here? Yeah, all petty things. So you think that, you know, according to conventional wisdom, you think you have to fight against the thrust of the Communist Party that want to dominate the world, and you find yourself fighting small ghosts over petty things. Okay? And the big guy at the CCP in Beijing said, yes, you're right, forgive me, let me try to help you. But they have trouble dealing with people in the provinces and people in the... because the power is much more faction and fragmented than you think it is. But I really... how long did I talk? I could go on another hour, you know. How long?
You're just about.
But, so we learned the lesson. We did very well. Mistakes were made, recovered. No damage was done by small ghost. They took away a lot of energy. Next fund is going to be bigger. It's going to have much bigger Chinese participation, but it's going to have many smaller investors rather than a few large. So we won't have a problem in the management of the structure. Of course, the two large banks will underwrite our fund, but we also they will invest and act as underwriter, so that we will have a large base of Chinese investors. This is very much in agreement with them. So we will avoid the concentration of power that times can be destabilizing. This is, and having said that, I remain very positive on China. Things are improving by the day. In terms of business culture, young people are much better than, the younger they are, the easier they understand things. Thank you very much for your patience, and thank you very much.
Okay, so questions for our two speakers before we move to lunch? I'm hearing so much roaring now.
Alberto, I have one question. From your perspective, you